I think you're getting senile.
Watch your mouth, young man.
I can't watch it. It's under my nose.
There are television shows that people watch. And then there are television shows that people live inside of for years without ever realizing it is happening. 2.5 Men belonged to the second category. It was not the kind of show that critics gathered around and celebrated with breathless reviews. It was not the kind of show that won mountains of prestigious awards or sparked deep cultural conversations. It was something rarer and arguably more powerful than all of that. It was the kind of show that ordinary people genuinely loved, week after week, season after season, for 12 straight years. And the numbers proved it every single time. At its height, the show was pulling in audiences that most modern networks would trade almost anything to see again. The combination of sharp writing, perfect casting, and a premise simple enough to explain in one sentence, but rich enough to sustain over 260 episodes, created something that felt almost effortless to watch, even when the work behind it was anything but. 3 people sharing a beach house in Malibu. 1 charming, irresponsible bachelor. 1 nervous, perpetually broke divorced man. 1 growing boy caught somewhere in the middle. Week after week, that basic arrangement produced laughs that audiences across America welcomed into their living rooms like old friends showing up at the door. The show ran from 2003 until 2015. It produced 262 episodes across 12 seasons. It made its stars wealthier than most people can genuinely picture. And when it finally ended, the world moved on the way it always does, chasing the next thing, the next hit, the next personality. But the people who actually made 2.5 Men what it was did not simply disappear. They went somewhere. They made choices. Some of those choices were brilliant. Some were devastating. Some were quiet and private and completely invisible to the outside world. And now, in 2026, enough time has passed to look at all of it clearly, without the noise of the moment distorting the picture. Before the show, before the headlines, before any of the chaos that would eventually swallow years of his life whole, Charlie Sheen was a genuinely impressive actor with a filmography that most people in Hollywood would have been proud to claim. Born Carlos Erwin Estevez on September 3, 1965 in New York City, he grew up surrounded by the industry through his father Martin Sheen and developed his craft with a seriousness that his later public image often obscured. His breakout role in Platoon in 1986 showed real dramatic weight. His appearance alongside his father in Wall Street the very next year demonstrated that he belonged in serious company. The Hot Shots comedies proved he could make audiences laugh with the same ease he brought to heavier material. By the time CBS came calling with the role of Charlie Harper in 2003, Sheen had already lived multiple careers' worth of experience. The character fit him in ways that felt almost uncomfortably natural. A breezy, self-indulgent, charming man who wrote jingles for a living, avoided commitment as a personal philosophy, and somehow made it all look effortless. Audiences did not need long to fall in love with it. The show became a hit almost immediately, and Sheen rose alongside it until he was standing at the very top of the television world. By 2010, he was earning approximately $1.8 million per episode. When syndication income was factored in, his yearly earnings approached $48 million. His net worth at its peak reached around $150 million. He was, by the standards of the television industry, almost incomprehensibly successful. And then the machinery that had been building beneath the surface for years finally broke through it completely. The collapse in early 2011 was breathtaking in its speed and its visibility. After entering rehabilitation for drug use, Sheen launched a public campaign against the show's creator Chuck Lorre that began as professional conflict and quickly became something far stranger. His media appearances during that period entered popular culture immediately. He spoke about tiger blood and Adonis DNA. He described himself as a Vatican assassin. He gathered 1 million Twitter followers faster than any person had managed before him. The entire country watched, unsure whether to be concerned or entertained, and usually landing somewhere uncomfortably between the two. Warner Brothers fired him on March 7, 2011. He responded by filing a lawsuit seeking $100 million. He launched a live stage show called the Torpedo of Truth Tour that generated approximately $7 million. Forbes later reported that despite everything, 2011 turned out to be the biggest single earning year of his entire career, with income exceeding $40 million. He moved forward into the series Anger Management, which ran from 2012 to 2014. The per-episode fee was considerably lower than his 2.5 Men peak, though the deal included profit participation that could have been worth anywhere between $75 and $200 million. What is certain is that the money was leaving faster than it was arriving from every direction. 3 marriages all ended with substantial financial settlements and ongoing child support obligations. Tax debts to the government eventually climbed close to $7 million. In 2016, he sold his future 2.5 Men earnings for $27 million, exchanging long-term income for immediate cash. In November 2015, he appeared on the Today Show and told the world he had been living with HIV for several years. The headlines that followed were enormous, but something shifted afterward. The relentless pace of crisis and spectacle began to slow down. Life became quieter, though not by any means simple. Getting sober in 2017 was the real turning point, and the reason behind it was smaller and more human than anyone might have expected. In a 2024 interview, he explained that the moment which finally pushed him toward recovery was forgetting one of his daughter's appointments. Not a courtroom, not a hospital, not a financial disaster, a missed appointment. That ordinary failure hit him somewhere nothing else had managed to reach. In 2025, a Netflix documentary titled Aka Charlie Sheen gave him the space to speak openly about his past in ways he had never done publicly before. He discussed his early years in Hollywood, his relationships and experiences from his most chaotic decades, and the life he had built on the other side of all of it. He spoke about his twin sons Max and Bob, and his daughters Sammy, Lola, and Cassandra, and described a daily existence that had settled into something resembling genuine stability. In 2026, Charlie Sheen's net worth stands at approximately $3 million. The distance between $150 million and $3 million is not just a number. It is years of choices, consequences, and costs that accumulated faster than anyone could manage. But the man who exists on the other side of all of it sounds, by most accounts, like someone who has finally found solid ground. Jon Cryer arrived at 2.5 Men carrying a particular kind of Hollywood history. Born April 16, 1965 in New York City, into a family already embedded in the entertainment world, with a playwright mother and an actor father, he had grown up understanding the industry from the inside. His breakout moment came in 1986 with Pretty in Pink, where his portrayal of Ducky became the kind of performance audiences hold onto for decades. The role was beloved and also somewhat limiting, the way defining early roles often are, and Cryer spent years afterward working steadily without quite finding the project that would elevate him to the next level. When 2.5 Men offered him Alan Harper, he recognized what the opportunity was and treated it accordingly. Alan was everything Charlie Harper was not. Nervous where Charlie was confident. Broke where Charlie was comfortable. Unlucky in love where Charlie seemed unable to avoid it. The contrast between the two brothers was the engine that drove the entire comedy forward, and Cryer played his side of it with a consistency and commitment that never wavered across 12 full seasons. He appeared in all 262 episodes and was the only cast member who never left. His salary began at around $550,000 per episode and rose over time to approximately $620,000, including syndication income that continued long after the cameras stopped rolling. His total earnings from the show approached $100 million. The Emmy Awards recognized his work twice, with wins in 2009 and 2012, and he received 6 nominations altogether during the course of the series. When the show ended, Cryer kept working without interruption or drama. He wrote a memoir in 2015. He took on the role of Lex Luthor in the Supergirl universe and sustained that character across multiple connected productions. He starred in and co-produced the series Extended Family from 2023 to 2024. He signed with the management company Artists First in 2025 and continued building projects through Discount Sushi, the production company he runs with his wife Lisa Joyner, which develops television series, films, and podcasts. At the 2024 Emmy Awards, he reunited on stage with Holland Taylor, and the two of them slipped back into their old dynamic instantly, and the audience responded with genuine delight. In 2026, his net worth sits between $65 and $70 million. He also received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 2011. The quiet, steady, unglamorous path he chose after the show turned out to be exactly the right one. There's something genuinely difficult about growing up on one of the most watched television shows in the world. Every awkward year of adolescence happens in front of millions of people. Every change, every uncertainty, every moment of personal development takes place under lights and cameras and the constant awareness of an audience. Angus T. Jones began that experience at 9 years old, which means that by the time he was old enough to question what he was doing, he had already been doing it for most of his conscious life. Born October 8, 1993 in Austin, Texas, he joined the cast as Jake Harper almost before he had developed enough life experience to understand what landing a role of that magnitude actually meant. He grew up on screen across 12 seasons, and audiences watched it happen in real time. By 2010, his earnings had reached $300,000 per episode, making him the highest-paid child actor working in American television at that moment. Before he turned 20, he had already earned tens of millions of dollars from a single job he had started as a child. In November 2012, everything shifted. He appeared in a religious video online in which he called 2.5 Men filth and urged people to stop watching the show. He described himself as a paid hypocrite whose newly formed religious beliefs were fundamentally incompatible with the content he was helping to create. The response came from every direction. Religious organizations distanced themselves from the group behind the video. His own mother expressed concern about the influences surrounding her son. He released a statement the following day expressing gratitude for his years on the show, but the situation had already changed in ways that could not be undone. His role was reduced in 2013. He did not appear during that season. And in 2014, he officially departed from the cast. He returned once, briefly, for a cameo in the final episode in 2015. He enrolled at the University of Colorado Boulder afterward and found something he described as genuinely valuable in the experience of being ordinary and unknown. He spoke later about struggling with marijuana during his teenage years and about how extreme his thinking had become during the period surrounding his public statements. Over time, that intensity softened into something more balanced and sustainable. In 2016, he joined the management team of a multimedia company and mentioned the possibility of returning to acting someday, though he has remained largely private ever since. In 2026, Angus T. Jones is 32 years old with a net worth of approximately $20 million. Almost every dollar of it was earned before he was legally an adult. The question of who could possibly step into a show as successful as 2.5 Men after its most famous star had been publicly fired was one that nobody in the industry had a comfortable answer to. CBS moved quickly because a show that size could not afford to stand still. Hugh Grant was approached and declined the offer. On May 13, 2011, CBS announced that Ashton Kutcher would be joining the cast as a new character entirely, and Kutcher made clear from the beginning that he understood exactly how complicated the situation was and that he was not arriving to replace anyone. Born February 7, 1978, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Kutcher had built his television reputation through That 70s Show, where his portrayal of Michael Kelso over 8 seasons had made him one of the most recognizable young faces in American comedy. He had also created and hosted Punk'd on MTV, which added a different dimension to his public personality. He arrived at 2.5 Men already famous and immediately had to prove that his presence could hold an audience that had come to the show for an entirely different reason. The Season 9 premiere on September 19, 2011 attracted 28.7 million viewers, making it the most watched comedy episode of that entire year. His character Walden Schmidt, a lonely internet billionaire who purchased the Malibu beach house after Charlie Harper's story ended, gave the show a fresh direction. The audience response was strong enough to keep the series running for 3 additional seasons before CBS brought it to a close after season 12. On the show, Kutcher earned approximately $800,000 per episode, or close to $20 million per season, numbers that made him the highest-paid television actor in the world at that moment. But what was already happening quietly in the background of his acting career turned out to be the more consequential story of his professional life. As far back as 2010, while he was still filming and still building his public profile as an entertainer, Kutcher had begun making serious investments in technology startups through A-Grade Investments, a fund he launched with Guy Oseary and Ron Burkle. The initial capital was $30 million. Early bets on companies like Uber, Airbnb, Spotify, and Skype eventually turned that starting point into something worth hundreds of millions. His investment in Uber alone, which began at $500,000, grew into tens of millions as the company expanded globally. In 2015, he and Oseary launched Sound Ventures, a fund dedicated specifically to early-stage startups, with individual investments ranging from $100,000 to $10 million. By 2025, the portfolio contained more than 70 companies. In August of that year, he helped lead a group of investors in a $2.7 billion deal to take Soho House private, securing himself a seat on the board of directors. By that point, his income from investments had far surpassed anything he was earning from acting, and the shift illustrated how completely he had redefined what his career actually was. In 2022, he revealed publicly that he had been diagnosed with vasculitis, a rare autoimmune condition that had temporarily affected his vision, hearing, and mobility. He recovered, returned to full health, and kept building. In 2026, Ashton Kutcher stands as one of the clearest examples in modern entertainment of a performer who understood that fame was a resource to be invested rather than simply enjoyed. Some characters become beloved because of the writing. Some become beloved because of the actor. And some rare combinations produce something where it becomes impossible to separate the two, where the person and the role merge so completely that audiences stop seeing the performance and simply see someone they feel they know personally. Berta, the sharp-tongued, unimpressed, deeply human housekeeper on 2.5 Men, was that kind of character. And Conchata Ferrell was the reason why. She was born March 28, 1943, in Ludendale, West Virginia, and her path to television was neither straight nor fast. She studied at West Virginia University, left before completing her degree, worked a variety of jobs, and then returned to Marshall University, where she eventually earned a degree in history education. Acting pulled her away from that plan, and by 1973, she had found her footing off-Broadway with the Circle Repertory Theater. Her performance in The Seahorse earned her Drama Desk, Obie, and Theater World Awards and established her as a serious stage talent with genuine emotional range. The role of Berta on 2.5 Men was originally written for 2 episodes and was not imagined as anything more than a brief functional character. Ferrell reshaped it entirely by bringing a specific kind of working-class dignity and dry humor that the writers had not anticipated, and the producers immediately recognized what she had created. A 2-episode guest spot became a regular role starting in Season 2, and she stayed with the show for 212 episodes across the entire run. Her Emmy nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series in 2005 and 2007 reflected an audience connection that numbers and awards can only partially measure. Away from 2.5 Men, her career had already included appearances in Network, Edward Scissorhands, Erin Brockovich, True Romance, and Mystic Pizza. She had taught acting for television at UCLA for several years. Her work stretched across nearly 5 decades of professional performance. In late 2019, a kidney infection developed and became increasingly serious. In May 2020, she was admitted to intensive care and spent more than 4 weeks there, surviving cardiac arrest while doctors worked to stabilize her condition. She was afterward unable to speak or move and required placement in a long-term care facility. On October 12, 2020, Conchata Ferrell passed away at Sherman Oaks Hospital in California. She was 77 years old. The tributes came from everywhere. Chuck Lorre described her as a steady and irreplaceable presence through years of shared work. Charlie Sheen called her a true professional and a genuine friend. John Cryer wrote about the warmth that existed beneath Berta's tough exterior and said he would miss her more than he could properly express. Many people who had worked alongside her said that Berta had always been the emotional center of the show, the character who made everything else feel grounded and real. She left behind her husband Arnie Anderson, her daughter Samantha, and 2 stepdaughters. She was laid to rest in Forest Cemetery in Circleville, Ohio. Holland Taylor has been working in American theater and television for longer than most of the people who watched her on 2.5 Men have been alive. Born January 14, 1943, she is 83 years old in 2026 and still actively building her career with the kind of energy that embarrasses people half her age. As Evelyn Harper, the emotionally complicated, sharply funny, occasionally monstrous mother of Charlie and Alan, she brought decades of stage and screen experience to a role that could easily have become a one-note caricature, and instead became one of the most layered and entertaining recurring characters in the show's history. Her 4 Emmy nominations during the run of 2.5 Men came on top of a career that had already produced a win, a 1999 Emmy, for her role as Judge Roberta Kittleson on The Practice. Her television work stretched back to the early 1970s, with appearances on Bosom Buddies alongside a young Tom Hanks and later substantial roles on The L Word and Mr. Mercedes. Film audiences knew her from Romancing the Stone, The Truman Show, and Legally Blonde, among many others. After the show ended, she did not slow down. She wrote and performed a one-woman Broadway show called, and based on the life of former Texas Governor Ann Richards, which ran for 132 performances in 2013 and represented some of the most personal and ambitious work of her career. She appeared in the morning show on Apple TV Plus alongside Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, and continued taking on new projects, including the comedy series Brothers and the legal drama All's Fair. In March 2016, she confirmed publicly that she had been in a relationship with actress Sarah Paulson since early 2015, though the two had first met years before at a dinner party. On December 2, 2025, Taylor spoke at Paulson's Hollywood Walk of Fame ceremony and delivered a tribute that those present described as deeply moving, the words of someone with absolute clarity about what matters and why. Holland Taylor earned approximately $75,000 per episode during her time on 2.5 Men, a figure considerably lower than several of her co-stars. The number reflects nothing about the quality of her contribution and everything about how the industry has always valued certain kinds of work. Melanie Lynskey was born May 16, 1977 in New Plymouth, New Zealand, and she was 17 years old when she appeared in Heavenly Creatures in 1994 alongside Kate Winslet in a performance that announced a genuinely extraordinary talent to anyone paying close enough attention. The performance was raw and complex, and deeply committed in ways that debut performances rarely are, and it set a standard that Lynskey has spent her entire career quietly and steadily meeting. On 2.5 Men, she played Rose, Charlie Harper's obsessive and unpredictable neighbor, whose relationship with Charlie evolved from stalker to something much harder to categorize across 12 seasons. The recurring role gave her steady visibility with an enormous audience, and allowed her to develop a character of surprising depth within the constraints of a network sitcom. She stayed with the show from beginning to end while continuing to work in film and other television projects throughout. The defining chapter of her career came in November 2021 when Yellow Jackets premiered. Her portrayal of Shauna, a suburban mother carrying the weight of a catastrophic shared past, was the kind of performance that changes how people understand an actor permanently. Critics who had admired her work for years suddenly found themselves searching for new language to describe what they were watching. She won the Critics' Choice Award for Best Actress in a Drama Series in 2022 and received 2 consecutive Primetime Emmy nominations for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. In 2023, she appeared in The Last of Us in a role that was brief in screen time and enormous in impact, playing a character whose quiet menace made every scene she occupied feel dangerous. The Critics' Choice Super Award for Best Villain in a Series followed. By November 2025, She had accumulated 24 award wins and 49 career nominations across film and television. Work on the final season of Yellow Jackets began in February 2026, with the conclusion expected later that year. She has spoken openly about the harsh physical standards she encountered early in her career and the roles she lost because of them, and about a meeting with Harvey Weinstein during her early years in Hollywood that left a lasting impression on how she understood the industry. She is married to actor Jason Ritter, and they have one child together. Her net worth stands at approximately $5 million, and the films she has appeared in have collectively earned around $733 million worldwide. Maren Hinkle was born March 23, 1966, in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, where her American parents were serving in the Peace Corps at the time of her birth. Her upbringing was shaped by education and a sense of public responsibility. Her mother eventually became a judge in the Massachusetts Superior Court. She trained seriously as a ballet dancer throughout her childhood until an ankle injury at 16 ended that path and eventually redirected her toward a different kind of performance entirely. She went on to graduate from Brown University and completed a master's degree from the Graduate Acting Program at New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. On 2.5 Men, she played Judith, Alan Harper's combative and frequently frustrated ex-wife, a role she inhabited across the show's most successful seasons with a sharp comic timing that made the character consistently entertaining. At the height of her involvement, she reportedly earned around $500,000 per episode. Her presence became less frequent after the 8th season as the show shifted its focus, and she appeared only occasionally during the final years of the run. In 2017, she was cast as Rose Weissman in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime Video, playing the elegant, emotionally controlled, and quietly layered mother of the show's lead character. The role demanded a precision of performance and emotional range that the Judith character had never fully required, and she delivered it with complete authority. Emmy nominations for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series arrived in both 2019 and 2020. The show ran for 5 seasons through 2023 and became one of the most watched comedies on streaming television, generating more than 8.3 million viewing hours in a single measurement period at its peak. 12 seasons, 262 episodes, hundreds of millions of dollars earned, and, in some cases, lost. Careers launched, rebuilt, transformed, and in one case ended by forces that had nothing to do with talent or ambition or any choice made in a writer's room. What 2.5 Men left behind is more complicated and more interesting than a simple legacy of ratings and syndication checks. It left behind human beings who each had to figure out what their lives looked like once the structure of a long-running, successful show was no longer holding things together for them. Some handled that transition with grace and discipline. Some were overtaken by pressures that had been building for years before anyone could see them clearly. Some found, only after the show ended, the opportunities that truly defined what they had to offer. And one of them, the one who brought Berta to life and made her into the quiet emotional center of a show that was not always looking for one, never got the chance to find out what came.